Rewatch podcast presents the Star Trek film series Rewatch. Join us each week as we head into the final frontier aboard the Starship Enterprise. Send your thoughts to the rewatchpodcast@gmail.com. Join us at our Facebook page, facebook.com/rewatchpodcast, and follow us on Twitter @rewatchpod.
Today we're discussing Star Trek Beyond, starring Chris Pine, Zachary Quinto, Carl Urban, Zoe Saldana, Simon Pegg, John Cho, Anton Yelchin, Idris Elba, and Sophia Boutella, directed by Justin Lin. Welcome back to the Rewatch podcast. I'm Cory, and the fear of death is what keeps us alive.
And I'm telling you now, Lassie. Sorry, I know that's a bit of a random line to introduce myself with, but I kind of had to go with it because the word lassie got mentioned about 50 times in this film.
This
Anyway,
is true.
it's good to be back.
Yeah, it's great to be back. We're talking Star Trek again.
Well, yeah, this is kind of what first brought us together as far as the rewatch is concerned. We did a complete feature rewatch, starting with the motion picture and working all our way, through to Into Darkness. And now we're finally at Star Trek Beyond. So I'm looking forward to having a good, solid discussion, man.
Yes, we promised we would be back to discuss the films as they came out. So here we are. We talked about Police Academy, Naked Gun, Weekend at Bernie's, and we're back at Star Trek.
I know. So we've gone from Commandant Lassard to Frank Drebin and back to Lieutenant James Kirk. Is that right?
Exactly.
We should have played actor golf on that one, but that's okay.
We should have.
Yeah, that's all right. Do you want to roll the trailer of the film?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
My dad joined Starfleet because he believed in it. I joined on a dare.
You joined to see if you could live up to him. You spent all this time trying to be your father. And now you're wondering just what it means to be you.
It isn't uncommon, It's easy to get lost in the vastness of space. There's only yourself, your ship, your crew.
You really want to head back out there, huh?
What the hell is this?
They're boarding us.
Abandon ship.
God.
I know why you're here. Why we are all here.
Our captain will come for us. Mercy will be the last thing on his mind.
I am counting on it.
Fear of death is illogical.
Fear of death is what keeps us alive.
Everyone who goes there, he kills.
That's our friends out there. We can't just leave them behind.
Unity is not your strength. It's a weakness.
I think you're underestimating humanity.
Hold on to something! Fire at will! Do it! Do it!
Pardon me.
He likes that scene.
All right, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that trailer. We're going to get into the discussion not too far away, but before we do that, we're going to start, as usual, with a little bit of trivia about the film. It was, as of July 29th, 2000... Actually, no, I've got the Box Office Mojo in front of me, actually. As of today, it's grossed 128 million worldwide, and it has done domestically in the US 88 million. It actually came out in the US on July 22nd, and it had an original budget of $185 million. So that's a lot of coin, Corey. It seems to be the norm these days with most films that get made. I mean, you so rarely see films that have $50, $60 million budgets anymore. It's always 150, 180, 200, $250 million. It's out of control, the spending, isn't it?
But it is worrying that it still has yet to make its budget back.
Well, to be fair, it's only in its second week of release, and I don't think it's been released in a lot of territories, namely like China and a lot of European territories and whatnot. So I'm reasonably confident it'll make money, but how much money is another story. I mean, 185 million, that's a lot of coin, dude.
And they're pulling out all the stops on this one. It has hit IMAX with a return of $11.6 million across 571 IMAX screens. This also got that Dolby Trio screen treatment as well. You've heard of that?
Have you ever done? I mean, you've done the IMAX screens before. You've been to those screenings, haven't you?
I've been to a few.
What do you think of them? Like, I do enjoy IMAX, but there is moments where it's just a little too big. Have you ever had that feeling?
I'm not big on IMAX, to tell you the truth. It's fine, it's nice to have a nice big screen, and if you can get a good seat, that's also pretty good. But when it comes to IMAX, screen size and all that jazz, I'm not too fussed by it. Then this, of course, was also released in 3D. Did you manage to catch a 3D showing?
No, but I suspect aspects of the film, which we'll get into a bit later on, possibly would have been a bit more enjoyable in 3D. I suspect they thought about 3D quite heavily with this film. There's a lot of layers of effects and whatnot. Did you see it in 3D?
I did see it in 3D, and it's pretty decent. I didn't mind the 3D for this one. I don't typically go for 3D for the most part. I think a lot of films just do it for the sake of doing it, getting more money and whatnot. But the 3D for this one is actually pretty decent. So I do recommend catching a 3D viewing if you have the time and the means. Now, as we talked about with the last Star Trek film, Star Trek Into Darkness, it had its premiere in Sydney, which is, special to me and you. We both are Sydney-siders. You've moved away now, but...
I have moved away, yes.
You are from Sydney, so It was a big deal that the premiere was in Sydney, and they've done the same this time around. It premiered July 7th. Right here in Sydney, Australia.
I mean, that seems to be happening more often these days than it kind of ever used to. Like these big premieres happening in Sydney on George Street or Fox Studios or something like that. And I don't know, man, the profile of Sydney has certainly increased in recent times, hasn't it?
It has. We've got a lot of stuff making its way over here. So much so, sort of just to tie into our next series that we're getting into, Alien. Alien Covenant is being shot here right now.
Yeah, I know. Okay, on to a little bit of somber news to do with this film is that Anton Yelchin actually died tragically almost a month prior to the film's release. And I think both me and you would agree that was pretty tragic, sad news. I mean, Anton Yelchin was certainly, he may not have been a household name, but he was certainly an actor that was on the rise. And he was interesting too, like he was clearly good. My memories of him are very much, obviously Star Trek being number one, but I remember seeing this Jim Jarmusch film that he made a few years ago called Only Lovers Left Alive, and he was Tom Hiddleston's kind of offsider in that. He was a bit of a bit part, but he stood out, and he was good.
Like a band hanger-on kind of guy,
Yeah.
Good role.
It was a really good role. Another film, and again, I haven't seen this, but I've only heard positive things from pretty much everyone on the internet, is this recent film called Green Room. Are you familiar with that?
I haven't seen it, but I've heard of it. I've heard a lot of people saying good things, even just before he died. I know people who saw it and gave it praises. So he's definitely a good actor, and it's very tragic. Just a freak car accident at his home of all places too.
Yeah, it's something weird to do with this 4-wheel drive, and it was something to do with, I think they issued like a recall of the car or something.
They did, like a week or two later, there was a big recall of the the car that was involved in his accident. So, yeah.
So it's actually been reported that for the next Star Trek 4, which I think has already been greenlit, even though I'm not too sure why, because it hasn't made as much money as I think they think it has. They've basically said that they will not be recasting Chekhov, not in the foreseeable future anyway. So,
well, early reports are that they want to get back for himself, Chris Hemsworth, and do a weird time travel episode, bringing time travel back into Star Trek stories and have Kirk going back into the past and having to do something with his father.
Hey, keep in mind, Star Trek 4, The Undiscovered Country, not The Undiscovered Country, The Voyage Home, sorry, that was a time travel film, and this is the 4th film, so are they trying to mirror it slightly? I suspect they might be.
Maybe. And of course, Chris Hemsworth did play Kirk's father in the first of the rebooted Star Trek films, so, if you can get the guy, he is quite the big star at the moment, so it might be a good play for them and a good way to sort of do that time travel story and have some continuity.
He's a big star, isn't he? Even though he's only really big in those Thor films, I don't think he makes much box office apart from Marvel films, but that's okay. J.J. Abrams actually declined to return to direct the 3rd film because of his directorial obligations, clearly on the highly anticipated Star Wars The Force Awakens, which the whole world saw last December. Abrams actually stayed on as a producer for the 3rd film, while screenwriter Roberto Orci, who was one of the writers for the first 2 installments of the newly rebooted franchise, was initially chosen to direct this film, but he actually dropped out for reasons unknown that I don't know about, and it actually later got given to the very interesting choice, Justin Lin from the Fast and Furious films. So, I mean, a bit of a coup for Justin Lin, so yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure we'll get into what kind of job he did in this film, but it is an interesting choice, especially coming out of Fast and Furious.
I've got an admission to make, Cory. Past Fast and Furious 2, I haven't seen any of them.
No, well, what can you do?
Like, literally, I think I saw Fast and Furious 2 and just kind of went, this is a bit shit, and stopped watching.
Yeah, not the best films in the world, but
you know what, man? Like all jokes aside, people love those films, and
they do,
and they're big movies. Like, people anticipate them. They make a lot of money. So as much as we might scoff slightly at the quality of them, that's irrelevant as far as like the amount of people that actually go to see these films.
And I'm not saying I hate them. I'm just saying that they're not like high class cinema or anything like that.
Yeah.
They're action films, and I understand why people would enjoy them. Another report here: Carl Urban was not actually contracted to come back for this film and was actually considering not returning to play Bones, which would have been a true tragedy. He was later convinced by Justin Lin that he should return as Bones.
Can they make these films if these actors don't return? I mean, you probably could if like Uhura doesn't return or something like that, but Bones, Spock, and Kirk, like, they're the big 3, aren't they? Yeah.
It would be tough to replace any of those actors at this point.
Yeah, it would be an interesting choice. I mean, it might work. I could be totally wrong, but I've got question marks. Zachary Quinto has actually stated in public as well that whilst he greatly enjoys the character Spock, he's made mention that he's actually ready to move on from the role and venture to other projects. He has stated that he fully plans to finish out his contractual obligations, and he's interested to see where the character's journey goes in the trilogy. Quinto has actually signed on for a 3-picture deal, which makes this film his last contractual commitment towards the role of Spock. However, he has signed on for a 4th film, so again, that would be pretty interesting to see how they'd kind of deal with that if he left. It's not impossible, is it? But then again, I'm pretty sure like the original crew back in the day, I mean, all those guys threatened to quit at the 11th hour, but they all kind of kept signing on, didn't they? Because they realized that as much as it might be frustrating for them as actors, it does kind of provide visibility, and it's a well-paying gig, and these are not small films, are they?
Exactly. He could end up just doing a full Nimoy and threatening to leave and never play the role again and continually come back for every movie. So, But speaking of which, of course, Leonard Nimoy has tragically also passed away, and he was not in this film, but they do make mention of the Ambassador Spock character.
Yeah, you see him, don't you?
Yeah, they sort of pass on the information to young Spock that the ambassador has passed away. And the film is dedicated to him along with Anton Yelchin, and rightly so.
The film actually takes place 2.5 years after Star Trek Into Darkness. Are we assuming they're halfway through their 5-year journey?
Yes. Well, the trivia I read is that they're actually 966 days into their 5-year mission, which is a shout out to the fact that this is the 50th anniversary of Star Trek, which originally broadcast in 1966. So 966.
Wow. Interesting. Now, some big news that came out of this film is that writer Simon Pegg and director Justin Lin actually made the decision of making Sulu gay as a nod to the original actor George Takei, who has since become a prominent LGBT rights activist. However, Takei has actually stated his disagreement with this decision, as that was not Gene Roddenberry's intention for the character of Hikaru Sulu. That was a bit of a big deal. That made a lot of waves on the internet, didn't it?
Okay, so I heard about this before the film came out, that the Sulu character was going to be obviously made to be a gay man in this film, right? The scene of him meeting with his partner and their daughter, doesn't scream homosexual at me.
No.
They could have had him give his partner a kiss or something like that. Instead it's just, hey, he's got a daughter, and they sort of walk off together, and I'm just like, okay, so he's gay. They don't make a big deal of it.
I think he doesn't he kind of like touch his back or something like that?
He sort of like puts an arm around him.
Yeah.
I'm just like, okay, so I mean, if you're gonna go for it, just go for it.
I heard some noises that sort of said that people just didn't really buy that, and it was that exact reasoning is what you said, that they didn't really take it far enough with how that would have played out if it was true. Because if you met somebody at the airport or space dock or wherever they are, and you hadn't seen them for a while, you would give them a warm embrace. Like, it wouldn't be like a slight peck on the cheek, or not even that. Wasn't it? It was just like they were clearly in a relationship, but it wasn't anything more than just a, hey, how are you? Like, that was kind of it.
They could have just been friends or brothers or something. It could have been anything. Nothing screamed they are a couple.
So as much as it was a revolutionary kind of gay couple in the Star Trek canon now, is it also safe to say that it's a dysfunctional relationship that's not very happy as well?
Well, I think we'll get into the reasons why I think this is a part of the film in our main discussion.
Yeah.
I did want to mention the scene at the very end, Kirk's birthday party, and he gives a toast to absent friends, which of course is, referring to crew members who had died during their mission. But this is also a direct reference, if you remember, to Star Trek III, The Search for Spock, where Kirk gives a toast.
Now, also, and this was a bit of a surprise to me because I was half expecting it to show up, is Alice Eve actually doesn't return as Carol Marcus, which I found surprising. But I don't know, like because they made a bit of a big deal about her in the last film, and she was like this new kind of crew member, and she was there at the end, and like she doesn't even get like a slight mention, does she? She's disappeared.
Yeah, well, it could play into continuity. We do know, of
that
course,
is true.
We've discussed this before, in the fact that Carol Marcus is the mother of Kirk's child. So perhaps something happened, and just as in the original movies, she kind of just took off to be a scientist somewhere.
In Star Trek: The Wrath of Khan, they discover her on some space station with taking care of her son David, which turns out to be Kirk's son. And you're right. They don't really explain why she disappeared for so long, do they?
It seems like she didn't want her son in the environment that Kirk has, as a captain of a starship. Kind of his priorities were there, and she felt that that's not the environment she wanted her son to be in. So
fair enough.
So it kind of makes sense.
Yeah, maybe the more I think about it. Now, William Shatner has actually confirmed that he would not be making, nor has been asked to make, a cameo appearance in the film to mark the 50th anniversary of the original series. I'm not too sure why they would ask William Shatner truthfully. I mean, I love William Shatner. I think he's wonderful as James T. Kirk 30 years ago, but not now. I just don't understand. I can't even see how they could write that into the story. Maybe, I suppose.
The idea makes sense, you know. Unfortunately, like, you know, I just mentioned Leonard Nimoy had passed away and he'd been in the film. So, you know, why not bring in another old cast member, William Shatner, for whatever role, you know, whether that's to play old Kirk, which would kind of just be retreading the old Spock storyline. But, you know, yeah, it would have made sense that he would do a cameo, and, of course, it being a 50th anniversary. But, yeah, it seems like he wasn't even asked.
No, not even slightly involved at all. But that's okay. Let's be honest, man. He's probably busy getting his, you know, convention money that he kind of travels around the world. I mean, William Shatner would be doing just fine, yeah? This is the first Star Trek original series motion picture, excluding The Next Generation, not to show or involve Earth. And they're right. They don't visit it at all in this film, do they? You don't see it.
Yeah. I guess, you know, when they say, you know, Star Trek original series, they are talking about the Kirk and crew storyline. So, yeah, if you exclude Next Generation, which was kind of a crossover, yeah, this is the first one that doesn't have any involvement with Earth. They're
That's right.
way out in the beyond, as it were.
Is it time?
Yes, let's get into our discussion of Star Trek Beyond. Okay, so the film picks up. They're you know, roughly 3 years into the 5-year mission that they were heading out on at the end of Into Darkness, and the Enterprise has got some shore leave coming up, a big space station or star base, I think they refer to it as, called Yorktown.
Yeah, it actually starts off in a fairly peculiar kind of fashion with a bit of an overdub by James T. Kirk, where he's kind of talking about how the Enterprise has evolved and like relationships are forming. There's a scene where Chekhov is being thrown out of some girl's kind of apartment. That was Chekhov, wasn't it?
That was Chekhov, yes.
Yeah, I'm sure it was. And I'm pretty sure she was green as well, which made me giggle.
He does have a couple of scenes in the movie where he's trying to chat up alien women.
Yeah. So, I mean, that actually happened, and that they talk about, like, just, you know, how that they keep exploring all these kind of places and how this mundane kind of reality has kind of set in a little bit amongst the Enterprise, where it's exciting being out and about and kind of, you know, fulfilling the mission and the 5-year mission and all that kind of stuff, but they are looking forward to some shore leave to maybe kind of mix things up a little bit, yeah?
And Kirk has actually been on like a diplomacy mission to sort of like settle a rivalry between an alien species.
I hated that scene.
This one species, as like a gesture of peace, it is their custom to turn over a weapon that they have. And they say, well, we give you this weapon as a sign of, you know, peace. And this alien species is like, well, why don't they want it?
How they get it?
Yeah. Where'd they get it from?
They're thieves.
And this alien's got like a big booming voice, and then it's revealed that they're tiny little creatures, and that, you know, he starts to weep a little bit, talking about like they just want to eat us, and and they go crazy on Kirk. Of course, his shirt gets all ripped open and stuff. I thought that was quite funny when he gets back to the Enterprise and he goes, "Oh, I've ripped my shirt again."
Keep in mind the gift that Kirk keeps trying to give to this kind of creatures is, and they make a big deal out of showing it like 50,000 times, and it's pretty clear. Like I got the sense from the first scene that thing that he was trying to give to them was going to play a bit of a key role in the film. Like there was not much subtlety about that scene, was it? And truthfully, man, I know this is $185 million epic, but those creatures at the start could have looked a bit better. I am no expert on VFX and special effects, and I know it's really difficult to do this kind of stuff, but from the word go, I didn't really buy it. Did you?
I was fine with it. I thought it was a funny little bit to begin with. And honestly, I didn't kind of put together that it would play into the overall plot until Kirk returns with the weapon. He gives it to Spock, and then Spock goes and logs it into their memory banks.
Yes.
And they kind of linger on it being, you know, sort of uploaded and filed away. And I was like, why did we linger on that shot?
Yes. Exactly. So after this has kind of all happened, it gets revealed that they're going to go to this place called Starbase Yorktown, which was this really peculiar kind of place to look at. I thought the design of it was interesting. Like even just looking at it, I couldn't quite get my head around it. There was like this gravity stuff and geometry to do with it. Like it was this really strange kind of looking place. Do you agree?
Yeah, it's like a really efficient means of building a space station because, of course, the gravity and everything inside would be artificial, so they can play with that gravity however they want. So the whole cities are big spiral, big spirally circular things, and no matter where you're going, the gravity's going to be fine. So, you got upside down buildings above you and you're on the ground underneath them and everything. It was cool design, I think, actually.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty cool. Unbeknownst to the rest of the crew, Captain James Kirk has actually applied for a promotion to Vice Admiral. And this is all because he's actually struggling to find continued meaning in their mission. Like, exploring the galaxy is not enough for this guy, is it? Like, he's bored. He's clearly a little bit bored. He actually recommends Spock as the new captain of the Starship Enterprise. So, and meanwhile, at Yorktown, Hikaru Sulu reunites with his spouse and daughter. So, that was actually that scene that we kind of talked about earlier on. That was a bit of a controversial. To be truthful, doesn't really need to be controversial, does it?
Doesn't. It really doesn't. And I guess, like, you can also look at it and go, okay, so it's kind of just like a flippant thing. Like, it doesn't matter, which, it shouldn't matter at all. So I guess in that respect, you can look at it and go, okay, that's fine. They're just playing it for what it is. It's nothing spectacular. It's just a gay couple.
Yeah, you're right. It's a who cares thing. I mean, whatever. But the fact that they kind of made it Sulu, and I can't help but think that maybe they were trying to follow the lines of George Takei. It would have been a lot more interesting if Scotty was gay or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, that would have been a lot more kind of, because you would not have expected that at all.
Exactly. And it would have to be a main crew member. It can't just be new Commander X who is also gay, because then they're just like, okay, so they just wrote in a gay character for whatever reason. Okay.
Star Trek has actually caught a little bit of flack because they've never really addressed this idea. Like, I don't think it's been addressed in the TV shows all that well. Maybe slightly, but certainly not prominently. And this is meant to be the future where humanity has advanced to this kind of very tolerant kind of way of kind of doing things, and to not have a gay character in any of those shows is a bit of a travesty. But I want to say that, Gene Roddenberry came up with this idea, and I don't think he kind of meant it to be like that. What do you think?
Well, I think this gets me to my point that I was making earlier, because you're right, Trek hasn't really gotten into this kind of story. And I think this is the theme for this movie. It's about the fact that the Federation has been well established now for well over 100 years, and their ideals are all about different alien species all coming together, living together, accepting each other's ideals, and there's no conflict there. It's a very idealized world, and this is the world we live in, and that is going to be challenged as we get into this mission that we're going to.
Yeah, like, it'll be interesting to see how Star Trek tackles this topic in future films. I'm kind of looking forward, truthfully, Corey, to a new scenario. I'm looking forward to the TV show in January. I'm hoping they might be able to address it from a bit more of a clean slate perspective, because as much as these films are great, there's a lot of baggage with them, from my point of view anyway. Like, when I'm watching these films, I'm thinking about Trek, like the history of Trek. So it'll be interesting to see how they integrate that the idea that Trek hasn't been very progressive with this topic in the future TV show. So yeah, it'll be interesting.
And of course, we're going to get into the interpersonal relationships as well.
Yeah.
Kirk, of course, doesn't have a relationship in the absence of Carol Marcus.
Yeah.
The fact that she's not even there, so he doesn't have a relationship. He is talking with Bones about his birthday coming up, and he's going to be actually a year older than his father was when he died.
Yeah, and he's all solemn, doesn't he? Because Bones kind of shows up and says, "Let's have a drink, for your birthday." And he goes, "It's not my birthday, man. It's not until 4 days away. I don't like, celebrating that." And then Bones says, "Yeah, that's why we're having a drink now."
And the fact that Chekhov is not a vodka guy.
Yeah, that's right.
He actually kind of likes his scotch, It's that integration of different cultures and stuff like that. He's not just a stereotypical Russian who drinks vodka.
Well, I think that's a bit of a throwback to the original series. I think there's a line somewhere in there where I think Scotty introduces Anton Yelchin to Scotch. I think. I could be wrong, but I think I read that the other day and I thought, oh, that's kind of interesting that they kind of did that, because I found it bizarre because, yeah, they instantly kind of go, yeah, I thought he'd be a vodka man. And he's not really, is he? He has the best Scotch ever.
Yes, and then we have Spock and Uhura who have broken up as well, you know? And, I mean, that's not the best part of the last two movies, their relationship together, but they've broken up.
I'm really sorry, man, but I hate this storyline. I hate it.
Well, of course, the idea that Ambassador Spock has also passed away, so it's only logical for him to push his own species forward. You know, he should be with a Vulcan woman.
I've got a real issue with the way they've developed some of these characters, man, and the lack of love for the lineage and the Trek history. I never bought Spock and Uhura's relationship. Zachary Quinto just doesn't play Spock, in my opinion, in the right way. He doesn't play with anywhere near as much dignity as Leonard Nimoy played the character. And he shows far too much emotion. I understand Spock is half human. I get that. And there is emotion inside him. But like all the little smiles to the camera and the whole relationship with Uhura, I really struggled with that storyline in these three films, and it irritated me greatly, Cory.
But yeah, after all said and done, I have to say that this film is rather efficient in getting set up. Right. Yeah. It pushes these ideas, these interpersonal relationships, the idea of all these species living together in harmony and the world is ideal. And the fact that Kirk is bored with the whole thing, you know? So that's set up right here at the beginning very quickly, and then we're going to get into the action as this pod arrives from this nebula, this uncharted nebula, and there's this captain on board. Her name is Kalara, and they give her this like translator device as well, which I found very distracting.
I agree, it was distracting, but it was interesting. I kind of felt like it was like the evolution of the whole language thing in the translator. That was always so convenient in later Trek. I mean, I understand it's not perfect science. I kind of get that, but I felt like they were trying to kind of make like a direct line between that communicator and the communicator, like in 100 years from now. Like it was a very primitive form of communication, but they still did it, didn't they?
Yeah, and she kind of lays out that she was attacked. They need to go and save her crew. So, of course, the Enterprise is docked there. So shore leave is cancelled. We're all getting back on the ship, and we're going to find out what the hell is going on in here.
Yeah, and then there's a scene, too, then before they leave, I think Kirk is talking to the Admiral or whoever it is, and he says, oh, the Enterprise won't be able to deal with it. It's an asteroid belt, or they're out of radio range or something like that. And Kirk is like, he's almost like a cowboy, isn't he? Like, I kind of find his attitude as a captain very cowboy kind of driven, because he's just like, oh, we'll be fine. We'll be fine. The Enterprise will be able to handle it. It's fine. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And it's some action, you know? Let's go into danger.
Yeah, that's kind of exactly what he wants. So they take this random survivor's word for it to go on this really quite intense kind of mission out of nowhere, and the rescue, when they actually get to this nebula, the rescue actually turns into an ambush when the Enterprise is actually overwhelmed by a massive swarm of ships and is quickly torn apart. Now, talking about films that do plot points that do things efficiently, like, again, they didn't muck around with this, did they? Within 20 minutes of the film starting, the Enterprise was torn apart.
Ultimate. Class M planet. Massive subterranean development, but limited to no life forms on the surface.
Proximity alert, sir. We have an unknown ship heading right for us.
Lieutenant Uhura hailed them?
Yes, Captain. No response. I am picking up some kind of signal. They're jamming us.
Magnify, Mr. Sulu. What is this?
Shields up, ready to move!
it's full on. And I really like this too, because we know how the ship works. We've seen all the movies, we've seen the TV show, we know they have shields and all that, and they're quite powerful. So how do you attack a ship efficiently? Well, you have vessels that can get through the shields and attack it head on. Just bombard the thing. It's quite fascinating to watch.
It's really quite interesting. I've never seen a design like that. There was like bees in space kind of thing. It was this really kind of curious design and way of kind of getting this thing done. But the Swarm's alien commander is a man by the name of Kroll, and his crew was actually aboard the ship, and unsuccessfully they search for an alien artifact called the Abranath that Kirk had obtained on a recent mission. Now, the Abranath is this little kind of, it almost looks like a wooden kind of thing almost, isn't it? And with this weird kind of design on it. And this is the thing that we see at the start of the film that he's trying to offer that alien species that kind of turned on him.
And I guess this weapon originated on this planet that they're at, in this nebula. So the fact that Spock had entered it into, like, filed it away and put it in the systems and lingered on that shot, like I said. This doesn't come back till later, but, they were actually tapping Yorktown's file system and found that they had this weapon. So this whole thing was, it was just a big setup to get the Enterprise there so they could get this weapon.
Yep. And the Swarm actually demolishes the Enterprise, and the saucer section crashes to the planet as the crew abandons the ship in escape pods. Did the Enterprise get destroyed in the first Star Trek?
I think in the last two, it was very severely damaged. Which I guess is to the point where they could fix it. This time, it's destroyed.
Oh my God.
It is absolutely destroyed.
And you know what? Kirk keeps getting promoted, man. He keeps getting promoted.
Destroying their billions and billions of dollars worth. Well, I guess money doesn't exist in the Star Trek world, but these things take a long time and a lot of effort to build, and he's just destroying them willy-nilly. But I have to say, my mouth was agape when they talk about separating the saucer section. They never did this in the original Trek. The separating the saucer section didn't come up until one of the Next Gen movies that we talked about.
Yeah, they used to do it in like Deep Space Nine a fair amount, and Next Generation they used to do it a little bit as well, like separating the saucer section and whatnot. I'm pretty sure Voyager had happened as well. So it's a pretty interesting kind of concept, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's good too because it also plays into the plot. They think, well, everybody can get out on the escape pods. Yeah. And I don't know if you caught it, but that's our Kelvin line, as I mentioned in our previous discussions, that JJ loves to get Kelvin into every film.
Yeah, it's because it's
his grandfather.
It's his grandfather. That's exactly right. So
the first of the pods is the Kelvin pods.
Yeah.
So get to the Kelvin pods and the crew jettisons. So pretty much our main cast are the only ones left in the saucer section.
Yeah.
And I think it gets down to just Uhura, Kirk, Bones, and Scotty maybe.
Yeah, I think that's about it.
Yeah, Spock's there as well.
Keep in mind, a lot of crew members die horrible deaths.
Yes, as this comes in. But they can't actually pilot the saucer section because technically they're still connected to the rest of the ship, even though it was separated off in the bombardment. That last piece is still connected, so they have to get down there and get it separated so the saucer section can become its own autonomous unit, I guess. And this is where Kirk sort of steps up to go and do that, but he encounters Kroll, and they get in a big fight, which actually, he manages to get the weapon. Kirk gets it away from him, and then Uhura actually, I guess in a way, sacrifices herself and gets Kroll into that section and then jettisons that so they can now pilot the saucer section away.
So on the planet's surface, Sulu, Uhura, and the other surviving crew members are actually captured by Kroll, and Kirk and navigator Pavel Chekhov, accompanied by Kalara, who was the woman that led them to the nebula, they actually find the wreckage of the saucer section. Kalara is actually discovered to be Kroll's ally when she attempts to retrieve the Abernath for him. To escape Kroll's soldiers, Kirk actually activates the still functional boosters, causing the saucer to lurch forward and killing Kalara as it flips over on itself. Meanwhile, a wounded Spock and Dr. Leonard McCoy search for the other survivors. I actually found their relationship in the wilderness reasonably interesting, Spock and McCoy.
Leaving me behind will significantly increase your chances of survival, Doctor.
Well, that's damn sure, Sylvia, but completely out of the question.
It is imperative that you locate any surviving crew.
Here I was thinking you cared.
Of course I care, Leonard. I always assumed my respect for you was clear. The dialogue we have had across the years has always...
It's okay, Spock. You don't have to say it. Well, at least I won't die alone. Well, that's just typical.
Yeah, I liked it. This whole section of it, I think it was good action, really. The whole stuff with Kirk and Kalara, I mean, that was great. And Chekhov was there and, you know, flipping the saucer section and all that stuff. It was great. You know, they played that ruse on her as well to get her to sort of give up who she is.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
And then, the stuff with Spock and McCoy, I thought that was really cool. And, you know, the idea that, you know, Spock has been injured and McCoy has to sort of like use tools around him to sort of help him out, and he gets like some sort of like phaser weapon and heats up a bit of steel so he can cauterize the wound, and they have a good back and forth, you know, when he's talking about horse shit and Spock doesn't get it.
No.
Eventually he's just at that point, he's just like, you know, to use your parlance, that's horse shit.
Yeah.
It's like, right on, well said, Spock.
Doesn't he kind of like attack him because he has to remove something from his body, and he distracts him really quickly, and he does it straight away, and he kind of says, yeah, like I hear this is kind of less painful when you know it's not coming, kind of thing, or something like that. And yeah, it kind of made me laugh. It was good.
And the fact that he's half Vulcan, so his heart's not actually in his chest, it's actually probably more down where the liver should be in a human. So
now,
that was all a bit of fun.
Now, I'm going to make a controversial comment, but I think they should consider giving Bones his own film, because I think he's a really strong character. I think he's one of the strongest Star Trek characters, and he's a total standout amongst this crew. I mean, don't get me wrong, the rest of the guys do an admirable job, but I think Karl Urban, I mean, he's a very good actor. I mean, he was Judge Dredd, and he was in the Lord of the Rings films and various kind of other things, but I think he's a really strong character, and I would love to kind of spend more time with him as a character. I know they'll never do it because they wouldn't believe that it has the legs to kind of stand on, but I think Karl Urban could maybe pull it off. I think he's really good in these films.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's a fantastic character. And yeah, you know, I think it would be a shame if, you know, because he wasn't going to come back for this film. He got talked into it. But yeah, you know, I would love to see a standalone Bones film. I'm not quite sure what the story would be, but I'd love to see more of the Bones character.
Yeah, that's right.
Sure. So in the meantime, we have Scotty, and he's kind of off by himself, and he encounters this woman named Jayla.
Yes.
She says she's there for the same reasons. Pretty much, she crashed there, and her parents actually died at the hands of Kroll. So she's kind of been hiding out, and she's pretty badass. I like her, you know. And I didn't know until after the fact that this is the woman from Kingsman.
Now, that's Starfleet property, okay? Can I just take it? But I'm feeling generous today, so I'll have at it.
Where you get that?
It's my Starfleet insignia.
What does it mean?
Means that I'm an officer of Starfleet. It's engineering division.
Engineering?
Aye, that's right. I fix things.
I know what is engineering.
You're no with those bastards that killed my ship, are you? I'll take that as a no.
He is Kroll. He is the reason why you're here. Come with me. Now.
Wait, now hang on a minute, lassie. I'm having a difficult day here. I've got to find my crewmates.
You help me, and I help you.
All right, well, things being as they are, I doubt I'll get a better offer today, so lead the way.
Good. I am Jayla, and you are Montgomery Scott.
Aye, Scotty.
Come now, Montgomery Scotty.
All right, hold up.
And she was great in Kingsman
Yeah,
too.
she had those swords for legs. The actress is Sophia Boutella.
Boutella, that's exactly right. I think she was fantastic, and I think she was a real breath of fresh air amongst not so much a stale cast per se, but a very known cast. Like it was nice to see something like original in this film, and I thought she played the character with a lot of gusto and kind of determination, and you could tell that she was like a genuine survivor, and she had a good story to tell. And truthfully, I thought she acted it very well. I mean, it must be brave for actors and actresses to take roles in Star Trek films and science fiction films under like layers and layers of makeup. I can't imagine kind of getting into character being much fun. Like, you'd be spending hours in the makeup chair, yeah?
You would, and it is a tough thing to do a performance under that makeup, but I think she looks fantastic, and the characterization is great, and as the story unfolds, she recognizes Scotty's Starfleet insignia.
Yes.
And that kind of links her back to what she calls her home. You have to come to my home, and it turns out that this is a crashed Starfleet vessel from 100 years ago called the USS Franklin, and she's kind of been using it as a base of operations, and she thinks that Scotty, being an engineer, he'll be able to get the thing flying again. So
I found the whole USS Franklin thing of quite a convenient kind of story point. Yeah, I mean, you could kind of tell as soon as Scotty showed up at this old abandoned kind of vessel, they were going to try and use it to possibly, spoiler alert, get off the planet, you know what I mean?
Well, at the same time, Simon Pegg did write this script. Very famously, he got the honor of writing this one. So, yeah, he gives Scotty a bit to do, along with Jayla being like a pseudo love interest for Scotty, if you will. Yeah, he has a bit to do. He has to get the transporters working. He says later, like, the transporters 100 years ago were used to just sort of bring cargo on board. But, I'm Scotty, and I was able to rejig it and save Spock and Bones, and of course he's got to get the ship working, and of course he gives this big explanation about how these ships were built in space. They were designed to only work in space, so that's a problem in itself. We need to actually launch from atmosphere back into space. So yeah, Scotty has his things that he has going on.
Doesn't he do a few things as well about like not wanting to use the transporters at the same time because he doesn't want to like mess them up and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, but later, of course, he's fixed that problem.
Do you know what I did enjoy too? I totally forgot about Bones's hatred of transporters. He really doesn't like them, does he? And every time he gets transported, he's convinced he's not going to materialize, and he always kind of freaks out like as soon as he kind of materializes again, like, am I still alive? Is everything still in the same place?
Yeah, and it's a great little quirk for the character as well. That was set up in the first one. Like, he didn't want to be going into space with Starfleet because he knows all the diseases and stuff that he can get out there. So
exactly.
It's just Carl Urban doing his thing again.
That's right. With Scott's help, the ship, the USS Franklin, is actually repaired and powered back up, and Scott, Kirk, Chekhov, McCoy, and Spock are all reunited and use the ship as a base. The group actually plot to raid Krall's camp to rescue the crew and transport them to the Franklin. Then they plan to escape the planet. Meanwhile, Krall actually coerces a member of Kirk's crew to hand over the Abranath that she has kept hidden for Kirk. And it's a bit of a strange scene, that actually, because it wasn't it hidden like under someone, like under, it was like hair.
She had like lobster legs on her head or something.
Yeah, exactly.
And she pulls it out and she's got like a vagina in the back of her head or something.
Yeah, I know.
It's a weird looking prosthetic.
And he's totally determined to get it like at all costs kind of thing,
He kind of demonstrates this thing that he does where he sort of like sucks all the life juice out of people.
Yeah.
So he can live forever as well. So he's a pretty horrific guy. And this is Idris Elba.
What is your name?
I am Lieutenant Nyoto Okuda of the USS Enterprise, and you have committed an act of war against the Federation.
Federation is an act of war.
You attacked us.
Your captain. Why did you sacrifice yourself for him?
He would have done the same. And if he made it off that ship, he will come for us.
I am counting on it, Lieutenant Uhura.
And
truthfully, though, man, I didn't really like that scene so much with the whole the taking energy from the crew members and killing them like on the spot. Like, I found it a bit unnecessary. Yeah.
Well,
I get it. He's evil. I get it.
Yeah, he's an evil guy. He looks interesting enough as well, but you cannot tell that's Idris Elba under there.
Well, you only really find out later in the film when they kind of reveal Idris Elba in kind of, this weird kind of way. But yeah, man, I've got a real issue with whoever came up with that idea of putting Idris Elba under all that makeup. I mean, truthfully, because it just looks like just generic insert alien guy, doesn't it? It's really not that challenging a design.
Well, we were praising Sofia Boutella for doing a great job under all that makeup. This is just so, you don't get an actor like Idris Elba with that kind of performance that he gives, that intensity that he has in his face, and then just cover it all up. Like,
yes.
I mean, hats off to Idris Elba for trying to take a role like that. I just think it was too much. It was too hard to, see him give the performance.
No, you're dead right. And it's part of the new Star Trek franchise that I feel like they've missed the mark a little bit by adding a little bit of weight and menace, like genuine menace, and actually having genuine kind of stakes that I actually care about with the bad guy. I don't think they really succeeded that well with Eric Bana in the first film. I remember watching that film and it just, I think the last hour just kind of flew by and it just happened. I thought Benedict Cumberbatch was okay in Interduct. I think Interduct was kind of one of those kind of weird films that I had issues with, and the whole Khan thing wasn't that great an idea. And again, Idris Elba under all this makeup and having to kind of emote and, make us kind of give a shit about this guy to a point, even though he's a bad guy. I don't think it really worked all that well. So yeah, I hope in future films they're able to kind of fix this problem, because it is a bit of an issue. The bad guy just doesn't really work too well, does he?
Exactly. While all this is going on, they actually do find out from the logs of the Franklin that Kroll is in fact the former captain of the Franklin.
Yeah.
And he sort of, I guess, felt like his role as captain of the Franklin was kind of like an honorary thing. He was kind of involved in like the wars that sort of founded the Federation.
Yes, that's right.
And he kind of, I guess, felt like he didn't quite fit as a captain. And then when he crashed on this planet and started using, this juice sucker device thing to keep himself alive, and he morphed into this alien looking creature, it's like he just felt like the Federation had done him bad, and that must mean that the Federation itself is bad.
Yeah, no, I do agree with that assessment. It's almost like a poster child for like PTSD and war, and like he kind of acts like everyone kind of owes him something, like he's kind of given his all and sacrificed a certain amount, and for that sacrifice he's kind of owed his dues kind of thing a little bit. It's a strange allegory that does work a bit, but again, I just, I kind of come back to just the portrayal of the character and just the way it was presented to me. Like, I so wish they got rid of that stupid makeup. It was just a bad idea. It didn't look that good. It just, and like, correct me if I'm wrong though, man. I'm assuming the rest of Krull's crew were the rest of the crew from the Franklin, because he wasn't by himself. He had several other people there helping him, didn't he?
Yeah, he had some other guys who kind of looked like him as well. So you kind of just assume that they're all part of the same species, but no, they're all just humans, and I guess they've all been using this soul sucker thing, whatever it is.
whatever it is.
Yeah, but his name was Balthazar Edison, right? So yeah, it does kind of have that air to it of, you're a whiny baby who fought in a war 100 years ago, and by all rights you shouldn't still be alive anyway, but you are, and now you're attacking the Federation, something that was founded on the ideals of living together in harmony and
peace
exploring
and
exactly, and all you want to do is continue to be a warmonger, which, fair enough, at your time was necessary. We were at war, but look what's come from that, and why do you want to destroy it now?
Yeah,
because your feelings were hurt.
A little bit, yeah. And that's the way it kind of comes across. It's actually revealed as well that the Abranath is actually the missing half of an ancient bioweapon created by the planet's original inhabitants. This can actually disintegrate a human life form in seconds. And now that the device is complete, Krull actually intends to attack Yorktown and kill its inhabitants. And using its advanced technology, technology go on to attack the Federation. Kirk and the other crew free the crew as Krall launches from the planet with the bioweapon, leading his fleet to Yorktown. So it's all happening in Star Trek Beyond at this stage, isn't it?
Yeah, they're attacking Yorktown, and they managed to get the Franklin to go. In what I think was actually, albeit a tropey kind of scene, was kind of intense. This idea that Sulu says, well, we're on the edge of a mountain. How about we just tip off the mountain and we should get up to speed and be able to take off? So,
but he doesn't know, does he?
Exactly. Like, it's like, of course I can fly this, Captain.
Yeah.
Can shifty you? Eyes.
Yeah.
And it's a trope, fall all the way down, moment of silence, and then boom,
they're off again. Yeah.
But I still liked it. I thought it was a good scene, and
I didn't mind it.
This old-fashioned deck that they're on as well. Like, I think they made it look different enough to what the Enterprise looked like. Down to like the seatbelts that they have to put on.
Yep.
They were kind of like metallic or something like that. Like you think like, later on they might have enhanced that design to some extent. But
possibly.
Yeah. But I don't know. I thought it all played very well.
So the Enterprise crew actually pursues Krall in the Franklin, and Scotty actually transports Spock and McCoy into one of Krall's drone ships. After ejecting the pilots, they actually discover how the drone vessels coordinate, and Krall's communication is actually disrupted with VHF transmissions, causing mass confusion that results in the fleet's destruction.
And by VHF transmission, we mean sabotage.
Yes, yeah, that's exactly right. So
we are loving hearing the Beastie Boys again.
No, I again, just it's a bad decision. It's been done. It was done like 2 films ago, and it was a bit rubbish then. Like, I accepted it 2 films ago when Kirk was kind of, growing up in Idaho or Iowa or wherever he was growing up in, and he was kind of driving around causing trouble and whatnot, having the Beastie Boys Sabotage playing, but I did not like how they used that. I didn't mind the idea of it, and I kind of wish it was just like some kind of signal. They really didn't need to use like a really well-known song, like really.
Well, earlier they had Jayla blasting Public Enemy.
Yes.
So you think, okay, she's just going to play Public Enemy again, but then she comes out with Sabotage, and you're like, all right, okay, a call back to the first movie.
Why are we calling back to a film?
It's kind of a coincidence that she would choose the song that Kirk was, stealing his uncle or stepfather's car, whoever he was. He stole that car and was blasting it then. It's just an awful coincidence that she would pick that song as this disruptor signal. I did like the line from Bones, though. Oh, is that classical music? It's a good McCoy line. But the actual idea of it, I'm like, oh.
And it goes on for ages too. They really play it out, but that's okay.
But I like it once they get into Yorktown. They manage to get through the hangar, but above the hangar, for aesthetic reasons or something like that, there's like a river that runs along the length of the hangar. So they do this aerial shot, and you can see the Franklin flying what looks like underwater. A beautiful shot. And just going back to that look of Yorktown, which was great because they play into that as Krall is sort of like jumping between buildings and stuff like that, sort of, they're in like the epicenter of the gravity, so they're flying backwards and forwards, and they've got to try and get the flow right so they can get back around to where they need to be as Krall wants to release this ancient bioweapon into the city.
Yeah, he's really obsessed about it because he's just this really kind of neurotic, overwhelmed, cynical, crazy kind of guy that just doesn't trust people, does he? He can't escape the old ways. He can't give up his guns, can he, this guy?
Yeah, so of course Kirk has to get into what is ostensibly a fist fight with the guy. And he ends up coming up with this plan to sort of eject the virus into the vacuum of space. And, going with it is Krall. It's an all right fight. I don't mind it, but it's not like huge or anything like that.
No, I kind of found it like it was fine. It was fine. It just didn't really kind of have much weight for me. I don't know, like this film, there's a lot of effects in this film, eh? A lot of VFX, to the point that it's one step away from a Transformers film. It's just layered. It's hard to kind of have any genuine kind of weight because you just know that it's just an effect and it's not real. There's nothing in my mind that says there's kind of any danger in this situation at all, because it's all just VFX. It's all special effects. It's just this crazy stuff kind of happening on the screen, and I can accept it to a point, but it gets to a point where it is going to go, it gets silly. It turns into silliness, and this film at the end did descend into silliness slightly for me.
And then, of course, Kirk is offered that promotion to Vice Admiral.
Why would you promote this guy? This guy, like, who takes this, he's like the flagship ship into this random kind of mission that they really don't know much about, put his entire crew in danger, have the ship get torn apart by this bee swarm-like hives, and have 3/4 of his crew sucked into the vacuum of space. So I'm seriously, man, if Bones died, or Uhura, or any of those kind of guys died, he'd be mourning those guys for a fucking week, man. There'd be the next film would be The Search for Bones, as opposed to 3/4 of the Enterprise gets sucked into the space, and he doesn't blink an eye. He doesn't.
The Search for Red Shirts.
Seriously, like, why is this guy keep getting promoted? He's not that good a captain. He's not even that good a negotiator. Even at the start of the film, when he is kind of talking to that alien race, he's really not being very diplomatic. Not really. Seriously.
You make valid points.
Go to a training course. Seriously, doesn't the Federation offer a training course in diplomatic tendencies and how to negotiate? Because Kirk cannot do it.
But he's going to remain captain anyway. And
Yes.
Spock, he's going to stay with Starfleet. He kind of lingers on a photo of the original crew from the original films.
Well, keep in mind, we actually didn't really talk too much about this, but Spock is clearly suffering from survivor's guilt a little bit, because Vulcan has been destroyed. New Vulcan has been established. And he's one of the few genuine kind of Vulcans around, and he really feels like it's time to maybe start giving something back to his lineage.
Yeah, and I think that's what the purpose of this scene is. He's going through some of Ambassador Spock's stuff. He sees this picture of the crew and realizes that he is doing the right thing. If he wants to honor his older self, the best thing he can actually do is to stay with Starfleet. These are his true family.
You know, honestly, Corey, that would have been a more interesting film if Spock did leave the Federation and go back to Vulcan and actually get involved in some kind of mission on Vulcan. And we actually got to see all of that in action. And the Enterprise gets involved with trying to lure Spock back. I would have been far more interested in seeing that story than seeing Krall.
Mm-hmm. They could have brought in like Savick again, or something like that, you know, have some sort of storyline there.
Yeah, I mean, you could have had all the whiz-bang effects, but you would have had, like, I think this film, like, as much as the action's fine, it's fine. Like, there's nothing inherently wrong. And you know what, dude? I'm in the minority. People like this film. They do. I reckon out of 100 people that have seen this film, I reckon 80 to 85 of them are walking out of the theater going, that was awesome. And that's fine. But for me, I was yearning for a few more genuine kind of Star Trek moments, and this film didn't really have it for me.
And, well, they're all there, and they're celebrating Kirk's birthday.
Yep.
And Jayla is offered a position within the Starfleet Academy, so I guess we may see her again.
Yeah.
I guess if Peg has anything to do with the writing, he'll probably write her in again.
Yeah, probably. Yep.
And, they all celebrate his birthday, and we actually do get what I think is probably one of the best CGI shots, is this time lapse of the Enterprise A being
Yes.
built.
Yeah.
So we're ready for the next film aboard the A.
Yes, Star Trek 4. Even though they're going back to find Chris Hemsworth, Kirk's dad, somehow.
They'll do it on the Enterprise A. And that's pretty much the end of the movie. They're, I guess, ready to go and finish their 5-year mission.
That's right. We are.
Shore leave is over.
Shore leave is over. On to Star Trek 4. Ultimately, are you recommending this film?
Well, you know, I have to go with a recommend on this. I mean, I can't say I'm hating on it as much as you were just a moment ago.
Yeah.
It's a perfectly fine Star Trek film. You know, I think the last one, Into Darkness, it went a bit dark, and you know, the whole Khan thing, I was a bit like, eh. This one, I think it was like an okay installment. You know,
Yep.
it wasn't anything too spectacular. It was fine for what it was. So, you know, if I, you know, had to put a rating on it, which I do, I'd maybe give it a 7.
Wow, okay, all right.
Go 7 saucer sections out of 10.
Nice. 7 separated saucer sections. I have really mixed feelings, truthfully. I don't want to hate on this film too much because I'm fairly, as I said to you before, I'm in the minority. People like this film. These films are designed not for me, who is this hardened Star Trek fan that has been following it forever and seen almost everything and holds this franchise really close to my heart. Like, I don't just like Star Trek, I love it. Like, I love Star Trek more than I do Star Wars. And I know that's a big saying. Like, this is by far and away my favorite sci-fi franchise. So for them to kind of go and remake it is tough for me to watch. And I don't want to be too critical because I think there are some good intentions there. But when I'm watching the film, all I see is just the very best cosplay on display, which is these actors who are clearly very good at their jobs, can act, but they're imitating what I know and love. And they're trying their best to kind of be reverent towards the original characters, but in some ways they're hitting the mark, and in some ways they're so far away, and I really struggle with it. I'm really pleased that they are making Star Trek that is appealing to a wider audience, and hopefully that wider audience will maybe start watching Voyager or Deep Space Nine or Next Generation, or go back to watch the original series or the animated series, or hopefully with a bit of luck they watch the new TV show which is launching in January 2017, which I'm very excited about. So I'm really looking forward to that, more for the fact that it'll be an original scenario, and I think that what these films kind of lack a little bit. Like, I think I mentioned the word baggage in my discussion with you earlier on, and to me that's a really important word because these films are filled with baggage. Like, everything is being judged for me. And again, I don't want to be too harsh because I realize there are fun moments in the film, but I really struggled with it for me personally. So I'm probably veering on the probably 4 warps out of 10. That's kind of where I'm kind of at. So
like just under a not recommending.
I don't know if I'm not recommending it. No, I don't think I can.
All right, so I guess we should tell people what we're up to next, and I think we're going to start this pretty much next week, right?
Yes, yeah.
So our schedules have lined up pretty well. So
yes,
next week's episode, we're going to be kicking off a new film series rewatch, and this time it's Alien and Predator. So we're just going to call this one our Alien versus Predator rewatch, and we're going to watch all the films in the Alien and Predator franchise in order of release.
I'm looking forward to doing this. We talked about this months and months and months ago, and it's finally kind of coming to fruition. So I'm really looking forward to kind of getting into it. And the reason why Alien and Predator were always kind of intertwined in this kind of slight kind of way, and I thought it would be interesting to kind of watch the film series in the way they were released, and the way like the little bits of information were kind of drip fed to you. So we're obviously starting with Alien, which was made in '79, and then on to Aliens in 1986, Predator in 87, Predator 2 in 1990, and then we're on to Alien 3 in 92, Alien Resurrection in 97, AVP Alien vs Predator in 2004, Alien vs Predator Requiem in 2007, Predators, which I've never seen, in 2010, and Prometheus in 2012. So there's 10 films in total. So we really hope you can join us for what is sure to be a interesting film discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. And just like Star Trek, there are more films coming. I know that they had announced a new Predator film that has yet to begin filming or get past script stage, but I know that they want that to happen. But at the moment, Alien Covenant installment is being filmed. So more films coming in this franchise. So we're going to do these 10, but like just like Star Trek, I think you and I might stick with it, and we'll put out some episodes as new ones come out.
Yes, definitely.
But yeah, these 10 films, I'm really looking forward. These are some of my favorite sci-fi, alien-centric kind of films.
Oh, very much so. Yeah. Some classics, and truthfully, some that are maybe not so classic. But we'll find out. We'll find out. Anyway, that's it for this episode of the Rewatch Podcast. Keep up with listener interaction by joining our Facebook page at facebook.com/Rewatch Podcast, or follow the show on Twitter at RewatchPod, and visit our webpage rewatchpodcast.podomatic.com.
And remember, you can always write us an email or record a voice message and send it over to the Rewatch Podcast at gmail.com. And also, if you've enjoyed the show, please consider giving us a rate and review on iTunes. And you can help support the Rewatch Podcast by heading over to patreon.com/Rewatch Podcast and make a monthly contribution as little as $1. And we're also up on YouTube, so you can just search the Rewatch Podcast and Star Trek or something like that and subscribe today.
Yep.
And I did want to make a mention that in recent months, we have started to remove episodes from our main Rewatch Podcast feed, and that's more of a hosting and storage issue, but we're hoping we can rectify that very soon, and we can get everything back into the main feed. But in the meantime, if you head over to our Podomatic webpage there, we do have links to all the other episodes which have kind of been pushed into their own separate feed, so they are available, just not in the main feed.
Hey, everything's on YouTube too. Everything.
Exactly.
and it's always shiny, pretty graphics too.
All right. Well, thank you for returning to Star Trek with me,
fine.
Nathan.
No problem at all. I hope I wasn't too harsh. I feel like I was reasonably controlled.
And I will just say, until next time, mercy is the last thing on my mind.
I'm counting on it, Lieutenant Uhura.
The Rewatch Podcast is not associated with the copyright holders of these films, and no copyright infringement is intended. The use of any and all copyrighted material is only for parody, news analysis, critique, or educational purposes as provided in Title 17, aka Fair Use. Music provided by Kevin MacLeod at incompetech.com. Copyright 2015, The Rewatch Podcast.
Hi, Rewatch Podcast listeners. I'm Corey.
I'm Tom.
And I'm Nathan.
First off, let me say that we have all had a blast doing the Rewatch Podcast. Every week, we put out another episode for free for you. And although we enjoy these discussions with each other, we truly do this for you guys out there in podcast land.
That's right, Corey. But we are here today to tell you about Patreon. Every week, there are costs involved in podcasting about film and television, including hosting and bandwidth charges, our own personal internet usage, and film or show rentals and purchases. So, we're asking you to become a Patreon supporter.
If you can afford as little as $1 to throw our way per month, it would really help us keep the lights on. And if you want to send $100 our way every month, we wouldn't turn that down either. But it's your choice, and we appreciate the support you bring.
As always, we strive to bring you the best quality shows we can create, and we hope that you enjoy them. So head on over to patreon.com/Rewatch Podcast to become one of our patrons and show your support for the Rewatch Podcast.
And if we get enough patrons, we may even be able to produce exclusive content just for the supporters in the form of simply getting episodes before the main feed release, or even bonus film discussion episodes as a thank you for your support. The website again is patreon.com/Rewatch Podcast.
Thanks, everyone.